Hi, everyone. Hope you are all good. We are here for grade one math. You can find all the lessons on aplusstudents.com. You have to log in there using your email address and password as provided by the administrator. Then you have to select math from the subject tab, scroll down to grade one math, and then click on view all lessons. There you can find a list of the chapters. We're going to start with the chapter fractions. So please make sure you have your notebook and pencil so that you can be important examples and definitions as well. And I'm on grade one math. Chapter we're on right now is fractions. Let's just start with the first lesson, that is simple fractions. What fraction does the shape should in? What fraction of the shape is green? So you need to count the number of equal parts first, right? So there are two equal parts. Now one of the part is green. So one out of two parts is green. You can write it as 1 over 2. You can write this fraction as 1 over 2. That means the shape has total two portions. And out of the two, one of them is green. So 1 out of 2 means 1 is green out of it. Let's look at the other example. What fraction of the shape is blue? So the shape has one, two, three, four equal parts, right? And one of them is blue. So you can write it as 1 over is blue out of 4. The total portions are 4. And out of 4, the one is blue. So that is 1 out of 4. Okay, the next one is what fraction of the shape is orange? So the shape has 4 equal parts and one of the part orange. So you can write it as 1 out of 4. That means the shape has total 4 equal parts and only one of them is orange. So that is 1 out of 4. Let's start with the test questions. What fraction of the shape is pink? So the shape has two equal parts. The total parts are two, and one of them is pink. So that is one out of two. One out of two means that shape has two equal parts, and one of them is pink. So option number two is the correct option. That is one out. Option number two is the correct option. That is one out of two. What fraction of the shape is blue, which is the correct option? That is one out of four. Option number two is the correct option. The shape has four equal parts, and one of the parts is blue, so that is one out of four. What fraction of the shape is yellow? That is option number one. The shape has three equal parts, and one of them is yellow, so that is one out of three. Option number one is the correct option. What fraction of the shape is green, which is the correct option? That is one out of two. The shape has two equal parts, one of them is green, so the one out of two it is. What fraction of the shape is pink? One out of four it is. The last option is the correct option. What fraction of the shape is green? Very good. That is option number two, one out of three it is. What fraction of the shape is purple? That is one out of four. Option number one is the correct option. That is one out of four. Option number four is the correct option. What fraction of the shape is blue? That is one out of four. Option number three is the correct option. Option number three is the correct option. We still on the same question. Why? What fraction of the shape is orange? Very good. That is one out of option B is the correct option. Okay, you can complete the lesson by yourself every day. Let me just move you next lesson. The next lesson is simple fractions, parts of a group. What fraction of the decagons are given? So you need to count the total decagons first. So there are one, two, and three decagons. Now we need to count the yellow decagons. So out of three, one is zero. So the answer you can write with fraction form is one out of three. So one out of three, right? There are three decagons. One out of three decagon is yellow. Let's just start with the test questions. What fraction of the suitcases are green? So which is the correct option? So let's just count the total suitcases. There are one, two, three, and four. The total suitcases are four, and out of four, one of them is green. So one suitcase is green out of four. Option number one is the correct option. That is one of four. Total suitcases are four. One of them is green. Option number one is the correct option. What fraction of the octagonal prisms are orange? So we have three octagons. One of them is orange, so that is one out of three. Option number one is the correct. So there are five rules, and one of them is green. So you can write it as one out of five. Option number two is the correct option. That is one out of five. What fraction of the ovals are green? That is one out of two. Option number one is the correct option because the two ovals are two and one of them is green. So that is one out. Option one is the correct option. What fraction of the bowls are orange? So which is the correct option? That is one out of four because the total bowls are four and one of them is orange. So that is one out. Some of the cups are orange. Very good. That is one out of five. The total buckets are five, cups are five, and one of them is orange. So that is one out of. But fraction of the decacorns are yellow. So which is the correct option? That is one out of three. Option number one is the correct option. What fraction of the blocks are red? That is one out of two. Option number one is the correct option. What fraction of the balloons are orange? That is one out of four. Option number two is the correct option. What fraction of the bottles are red? One out of five it is. Option number two is the correct option. What fraction of the taps are blue? That is one out of two are blue. Option number one is the correct option. That is one out of three. Mona bones are purple. Option number two is the correct option. Okay, we are done with the lesson. Let's just move on to the next lesson. That is fractions word problems. So let's just start with the lesson. Henry made six brownies. He put nuts on one brownie. What fraction of the brownies had nuts? So the total brownies are six. That is one out of six. Because the total brownies are six, so one of them is they have nuts. Let's just start with the test questions. 10 students went to the zoo. Nine of them saw the penguins, but fraction of the students saw the penguins. So which is the correct option? The total students are 10, right? And nine of them saw the penguins. So the fraction is 9 out of 10 it is. The correct option is 9 out of 10 students saw the penguins. Becky bought some bagels for brunch last Sunday. Five of the bagels had raisins. What fraction of the bagels had raisins? That is 5 out of 7 because 5 of them have bagels and the total were 7. So that is 5 out of 7. Hector made a bouquet with 10 flowers. He used 7 pink flowers. What fraction of the flowers were pink? So which is the correct option? That is 7 out of 10. The last option is the correct option. 7 out of 10 it is. There were three students in a swimming pool. One got out. What fraction of the students got out? That is one out of three is students got out. Option number four is the correct option. That is one out of three. There are nine restaurants in Biggs Town. Five of the restaurants serve hamburgers. What fraction of the restaurants serve hamburgers? That is five out of nine. Keep this in your mind. Numerators are always smaller than denominator, right? So that would be five out of nine. Five is smaller than nine. So option number three is the correct option. Dakota saw four crabs in an aquarium. Two of the crabs were orange. What fraction of the crabs were orange? That is two out of four. Option number one is the correct option. One by one, there are three cars parked at Bedroll Street. Two of the cars are red. What fraction of the cars are red? The correct option is that is two out of three. Option number two is the correct option. Andrew made six brownies. He put nuts on one brownie. What fraction of the brownies had nuts? That is 1 out of 6. Option number 4 is the correct option. Bob got out 2 celery sticks for a snack. He put peanut butter on one of them. What fraction of the celery sticks had peanut? Option number 3 is the correct option. That is 1 out of 2. Option number 3 is the correct option. A restaurant chef made 5 bowls of pasta. She put extra cheese on one of them. What fraction of the bowls had extra pasta? So, which is the correct option? That is 1 out of 5. Option number 1 is the correct option. 9 students went on a trip to New York City. 7 of them visited the Statue of Liberty. What fraction of the students visited the Statue of Liberty? That is 7 out of 9. Option number 2 is the correct option. Okay, we are done with the lesson. So we were working on grade 1 math. Chapter we were working on is fractions, lessons. We covered today are simple fractions. What fraction does the shape show? Simple fractions part of a group and fractions word problem. So please make sure before the next session you can complete all the practice questions for the lessons. We practice your homework until next session. So if you need more help with any of the lessons, you can please click on the live chat button. Tutors are available there to help you, or either you can write down questions in the chat box. I'm here to answer all your questions and confusion with you. So any questions you can please ask if you have any. No questions. So for today. See you in the next session.